99.9 Punk World Radio FM. This one, we have a phenomenal interview coming your way. We are joined by Poway, California's own. These guys have been doing their thing since the early 90s. They came up in the industry with Unwritten Law, Blink 182. This is pop. This is punk at its finest. We got Agent 51 right here live on the radio station. Guys, how are you doing out there all the way out there in Sunnyside, California?
Doing good.
We're heating up, man. It's a hot one. Thanks for having us. How's Canada?
Pretty good, actually. We're currently dealing with our summer right now, but I wish I could say it was a hot, sunny day today, but it was just gloomy and wet. So tomorrow's another day. So hopefully we can get that. Hopefully you can share a little bit of that sunshine down here with up here with Canada.
Yeah, we'd love to come play Canada sometime.
I got to say it's long overdue as well. I know you guys are doing your thing. You guys got shows currently, but I got to say it's long overdue having you guys here in the Great White North.
It would be awesome, man. I love Canada. I used to live in the Northeast United States, and I popped up into Quebec and Montreal a few times and just love it. So I'd like to see more of the country.
And I know you guys are busy individuals, so I'm not going to take you away from your evening too long, but I got to go way back to the very beginning. Before even Agent 51 existed, there was a band called Open Fast. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us the story behind Open Fast, and of course, what ultimately led to you guys transitioning and forming Agent 51.
Yeah, I was washing dishes at a place called the Hamburger Factory in Poway, California. My coworker's name was Noel, who was slated to be the singer for Open Fast, and he wanted to form his own band. So he said, "Hey, Chris, you want to try and sing?" And so basically what I could do at the time was just yell in key. So he hooked me up with his friends, and without having any knowledge of music at all, or arrangement, or structure, or guitar tone, or even what sounded good. We were just five dudes just fueled on adrenaline, rage, and teenage hormones, and just decided to turn our crappy amps up to 11 and see where it went. At the time, it was just a few punk bands in San Diego. And to answer your question, where Open Fast lasted probably about a year. We made a little demo tape, and we played Blink 182's first CD release party at Soma in San Diego, Soma, the punk club in San Diego. And I'm sure if this had been any other year, some other band would have gotten the slot, but it just so happened to be that Open Fast, Unwritten Law, and Blink were probably the only punk bands around in that area at the time. So it's kind of like, all right, who do we got? Okay, there's this garage band over here in Poway.
And I do know as well that I actually read that you guys had the opportunity to attend high school with pop punk legend Thomas DeLonge of Blink 182. And of course, as you mentioned, Open Fast had the opportunity to open up for them as well. But I was wondering if you can actually just go back to that a little bit and just tell us a bit more about what it was like being able to be in high school with Tom DeLonge, and of course, just being able to share the stage with a very, very, very young Blink 182, because this is way before the Travis Barker days. This was with Scott Ranner.
Sure, yeah. Well, at the time, there was no thought of really making it. It was no internet, so all us skaters in Poway, we would just watch skate videos as a way of getting new music. So we would go to class and we would share demo tapes. And I had a class at Poway High, a TV, video, and film class that Tom was in. And Tom walked in the class one day with like an armful of just shabby old cassette tapes, and I had $5 that I was going to spend on lunch, but I decided to buy one of his tapes. He said, "Hey, Chris, you want to buy a tape?" I said, "Absolutely." And he had like this Ziploc bag full of like ones and fives and some change. And to be fair, like he was the same goofy guy back then that he is now. Like there's no like shtick. I mean, that's really who those guys are. They were there. They were doing all that stuff before they even made it. So it's not like an act. That's pretty much who they are. And yeah, like they were just part of the skate scene. We would hold skate rallies like at parking lots, skate rallies to build skate parks and stuff. And Tom would show up and I would show up, and like all the local skate kids would just show up. And it was kind of like half music, half skateboarding, the whole community back then. And if you weren't skating, you put together a band and tried to play a show. And Blink was just like every other band back then, trying to make it, trying to get a Soma show. But they were really driven. Like they would really flyer like everywhere, like their life depended on it. And you know, I got to give them credit for that, because I thought I had drive, but they really pushed it. They played everywhere they could. Does that answer the question?
Most definitely. I will admit, I don't even remember half of my high school days. So the fact that you remember that ordeal with Tom and the tapes, I mean, your memory is absolutely superb. Because if you were to ask me a question about my high school days, I would sit there and scratch my head and be like, next question?
Right. Well, thank you. Yeah, like my short-term memory is shot, but for whatever reason, my long-term memories turned out pretty good. So I can remember a lot of stuff. That particular day that I bought the demo tape off Tom, Mark came and picked him up, and it was a Thursday, if I remember correctly, and they went together to cut school to be part of the video shoot for the Stone Temple Pilots' Wicked Garden video that was being filmed downtown at the old Soma. So if you see that video, that's a little bit of history. If you see that video, that's where it was filmed. And that was like a legendary venue. Like I wish everybody who lives in the U.S. or beyond could visit. Saw my first Green Day show there for $10.
And
Yeah,
and now
same
they're
here.
charging about $200 for tickets now, which is crazy.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And December 9th of 1997, Agent 51 released the debut studio album titled Red Alert that actually established your guys' presence within the punk rock community. Looking back all those years, can you actually tell us the story behind this amazing record? And of course, how did it end up on Alphabet Records?
We didn't really have any money at the time to record, and Rob Perlman, the head of Alphabet Records, he thankfully was savvy enough to support the scene in a way where he could fund local bands. And thankfully he liked our songs enough to say, hey man, like I'll front you guys, you know, a couple grand if you want to go in the studio. But a couple grand, it seems like a lot, but it only granted us 2 days in the studios. So for that record, we had to have everything ready to go. I think Greg, you were there. We recorded it in 2 days, I think in 2 6-hour sessions.
Yeah, 19 songs plus mixing in 2 days. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell there's certain songs that just have mistakes in them that it was just like,
Yeah.
whatever. Like, we don't have time to go in and punch all this stuff. So,
Yeah, we recorded that record in November. We were supposed to record it in July, but I ended up breaking my wrist. So a lot of the mistakes, to your point, Greg, that you hear me play are because I'm recording with a cast on my arm that had to be modified so I could wrap my fingers around the guitar.
I gotta say, that right there is punk rock. I mean, the fact you still play guitar with a broken wrist, I mean, that's badass.
Yeah. It's fun. I wish I wish we had the chops we have today. I think it could have been, you know, way better, but you know, I think like you said, Greg, some of the mistakes kind of make it kind of charming in a way, you know, real garagey, real rough.
yeah.
And I do know as well the self-titled song of the album, Red Alert, you guys actually filmed a music video for that as well. I know you said you were only funded $2,000 for this record. Did you guys have to pay, like, was that $2,000 also including the studio time and the filming of that music video? Or was that a totally separate ordeal that you guys had to pay for out of pocket?
I don't remember how we paid for the music video really, but I know we didn't spend very much money on it because it was kind of a beg, borrow, and steal situation. Like that making that music video is kind of like what put me on a trajectory to like ultimately go to film school and like work in TV and stuff. And at the time, it was me and our buddy Chris Bohensky, and we both had an interest in film, and we went to a thrift store and we bought a Super 8 camera because we wanted to shoot on real film, and we were just learning what the difference between film and video even was. And I had a class that the teacher let me come and edit at the college for free. Yeah, so we definitely did not spend very much on that music video. And like the concert scene in the music video is in my bedroom, and we just put like 9 people in the foreground to make it look like it was in a densely packed club. So yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the fondest memories I have, you know, is the way we all came together and like just made it happen without any real expectation. Like the way Greg put together all the shots and buying the Super 8 camera, you know, no internet, just made it happen. You know, I look back and I still can't believe it, you know, that we were able to pull it off.
And speaking of packed crowds, or in this case, I know you said in your bedroom you made it look like a packed crowd with 9 people, but 3 years later, you guys didn't have to do that, as you had the opportunity to perform at the Warped Tour on the Ernie Ball stage, where, of course, there was much more than 9 people. There was probably 9,000 or even more there. But what was it like just being able to perform at the legendary Warped Tour? Because I know this wasn't your first time, but what are your guys' most memorable Warped Tour memories? Because I know when it comes to the Warped Tour, everyone has a pretty gnarly story.
That was a huge victory for us. I know Mike can definitely speak to that. Mike was out because this was the Ernie Ball stage. There was no real way to play it unless you won the contest. And we were on a mission to win this freaking contest because we had never won anything before in our lives. So we spent every waking hour trying to promote ourselves. I think at the midnight hour, Mike was at the mall handing out flyers, asking strangers to vote for us. And we ended up winning it. It was so surreal because like I got a guitar out of the deal. We all got like a year's worth of Ernie Ball strings, amplifiers.
A year. I'm still using those strings.
Yeah, me too.
I'm still playing the bass that we won from that competition. That's like still my daily driver to this day.
Yeah, it was just such a huge victory. Like I'll never ever forget the feeling of like, because a lot of times there's not a whole lot of reward in being a punk band. It's like you show up to some podunk town somewhere and you hope that 5 people like your music and you sweat your ass off and you hope to make enough money to make it to the next gig. So, you know, winning that was just such a huge deal, that finally like all this hard work just paid off. So the stage show, to your question, was a huge win. And it was equally as huge as like winning that contest. And, you know, looking back, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but at the time it was a huge deal. And like seeing that wave of people out there, like some of them getting to hear your music for the first time and like kind of doing the RCA dog thing, going, huh, what's this? And some people that are just singing along, knowing every word. I mean, that was really, really cool.
That was definitely a huge win for us. Certainly one of my highlights from all the Warped Tour stuff that we did. Like I remember being on that Ernie Ball stage, and you know, you're going up against some pretty stiff competition. I forget who was playing at the same time that we were playing on the main stages, but you know, we're on the Ernie Ball stage, and like One Man Army and the dudes from Bucko 9 and the dudes from Suicide Machines are like on the side watching us, and it was just a huge victory, man. Definitely probably my favorite moment from Warped Tour. Either that or the other 2 moments that stick out are meeting Tim Armstrong in the crowd. And we have a picture of Eric with him from that. And then Davey from AFI sharing his kettle corn with us one morning.
Yeah.
And you can't go wrong with kettle corn, man. I mean, stuff's delicious.
Vegan. Yeah, it was vegan kettle corn, if I remember correctly. He made a point to let you know it was vegan. I was like, dude, I'm all in. Give me some vegan kettle corn.
it was such a classic experience. Like, you know, it's the morning before the crowd's been let in, and Davey's like strolling around with an umbrella, like a black umbrella, like blocking the sun, and he's just eating some kettle corn, man, and he just offered to share.
That's the most emoest thing I've ever heard. Just, you know, little umbrella.
Yeah. It was, that was back when he was in his full like Tim Burton stage. So
like the AFI Miss Murder days, eh? So probably like mid 2000s, I would say.
Maybe a little bit before that. I think the year had to be, what was it, like 2001 or something like that, guys? Like probably 2001.
And while we're still on the topic of the early 2000s, I don't mean to make this interview all about records, because I do know obviously we're going to be talking about your newest record coming up here shortly, but I got to break down my personal favorite Agent 51 record called Just Keep Running that dropped in the millennium of 2000. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us the story behind this amazing album, and of course the album artwork, because this album artwork from Agent 51 always stands out because it just has that like artistic animation style to it.
Thanks. Yeah. This was our chance to kind of level up. Mikey is now in the fold as a drummer, so we had a chance to really kind of do some pre-production in Greg's garage. So we recorded all our demos, all our ideas on tape, and then had a chance to kind of just go over everything the best we could before we got in the studio. Rob Perlman, again, helping us fund the record. I think this time we now got like a $3,000 budget. So again, it wasn't rushed, but it was like, okay, like make sure you have your shit together. And it was, for me, it was basically just a bunch of ideas and songs that we kind of cobbled together. And the idea in my head was like, okay, well, if Operation Ivy can do 27 songs, why can't we do 20 songs? You know, but not really thinking like, oh, like their songs are like a minute and a half, 2 minutes tops. So the idea was like, let's really put our imaginations into this one. It was around this time, I think Greg came up with the idea to start wearing the suits on stage. And it was kind of like just taking that to the next level. Like, okay, how can we make the band stand out when there's so much competition? By this time, like there's tons of punk bands flooding San Diego. So we did like this comic book cover concept, and Greg wrote the sort of mythos surrounding each figure in the band. And that really helped kind of set us apart, because we could package the whole thing like an entire comic book / album. And then what we could do from there is put the albums in these manila folders, stamp it top secret, and then put that in the display case at all the record stores. So people walking in, they'd see the display and go, what the hell is that? Right. And so I think that gave us a little bit of an edge just as far as getting our name out there.
And speaking of getting your name out there as well. Oh, my apologies.
Well, I was just going to say, Chris mentioned Rob, but didn't we self-fund that record? Because we ended up putting it out as Suburban Hooligans.
That's right. We did. We'd made enough money playing shows by then to actually have a recording budget.
A living band fund.
Yeah.
We were grinding really, really hard around that time. We were self-funding, or I guess a little bit after Just Keep Running was when we were like self-funding tours and doing the, you know, book your own effing life kind of stuff. But we were constantly going up to like Northern California, playing shows, just doing anything and everything we possibly could. So, you know, when you're a young band and you're grinding, I think every dollar that you make goes back into the band fund, right? It's like you never walk away with anything. It's like you're buying T-shirts, you're recording more material, you're you know, putting gas in the van or doing some kind of repair or whatever. So yeah, we saved up some money and we booked, what was it, guys? Like 2 weeks, I think, in Exum Studios in North San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And what I will always specifically remember about Just Keep Running is like we recorded that record just before there was a massive shift in technology. So I think what very few people realize they're hearing when they hear Just Keep Running is a record that was recorded reel to reel. There's no Pro Tools. There's no click track. There's no Melodyne, right? It's us doing the best that we possibly could in 2 weeks to record 20 songs in a room, right? So there's no technology on that record.
Yeah, good point.
You know, so it's like that is essentially just a really, you know, polished demo. We just did as good as we possibly could. And, you know, with that being said, I almost feel like it sort of worked against us because everything from that period of time forward was a lot more polished, right? All the other bands that came out are like using Pro Tools and they're doing pitch correction and Melodyne. They have all these tools. And we didn't have that. So it made our next record an interesting experience.
And with this record as well, it also caught the attention from Billy Joe Armstrong, also known as the lead singer of Green Day. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about that opportunity. And of course, what was it like having him re-release this album? I believe I want to say a year or two later.
Yeah, well, like Mike said, like we did everything we could to try to get any kind of label attention we could. We sent out these packets marked top secret to labels to make them look like, you know, they're this top secret file. And we got almost no bites, right? Like there was a local label that, you know, took some interest, but was kind of non-committal. So one day I get this call from this Greg at, you know, at Atlantic Records saying, hey, we're interested in your record. Give us a call back. And I call the number back and it's some sweatshop in LA. And it turns out it's my friend, like totally pranking me, trying to make us think that Atlantic Records is you know, interested in our record. So that was like a huge like bum out, right? Because it's like, oh, we almost had it. So a week later, I get this call from this guy on my machine. Hey, Chris, this is Billy Joe from Adeline Records. And of course, I'm thinking like, this is a total prank call, right? And so I call the number back thinking like, this is bullshit, like ready to yell at somebody. And it turns out it's actually him. And he said, hey, what's your guys' plans? Are you guys touring? Do you have any new songs? And I told him, oh yeah, we're planning a 2-week tour here and there, which we hadn't planned. And told him we had all these new songs, which we didn't. And he said, well, my band's I'm gonna be at the Fillmore in 2 weeks. I'm like, well, yeah, we're touring. Why don't we just meet you up there? Which we didn't have plans to tour, so you know, flew the band up there to meet him, and from there, you know, shook his hand and we got to ask him questions, and then after that, the ball kept rolling. Basically, sent us a contract. Said it was probably the easiest record deal the easiest record deal we've ever signed. And it was such a validation because after, I don't know how many CDs we sent out to labels and not even getting a no, not even like, hey, we like you, but no thanks. Having that kind of validation was pretty cool. Was pretty fulfilling.
And it must have been a pretty surreal moment for you as well, Chris, is actually getting that call. Because I remember at the very beginning of this interview, you talked about, you mentioned briefly about going to see a Green Day show at the very beginning of Agent Orange and of Agent 51, and just being able to, like, you know, having the opportunity to pay $10 for this ticket. And then all of a sudden now you're, you know, getting signed by Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day. It must have been kind of a 360 moment for Agent 51.
Yeah, it was real surreal because at that $10 Green Day show, I'd found a sticker on the mosh pit floor and like crowd surfed my way toward the stage and like slapped it on the monitor in front of Billy Joe, and he tore the sticker off the monitor and like put it on his guitar. And that, I was like, that's such a victory moment for me. I was like, yeah, I mean, if it all ended there, that would still be like a cool story. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely surreal. I thought it was a prank call at first. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know.
Well, the good thing is, you said, I know you said you wanted to yell at him over the phone. It's a good thing you didn't tell him off, because that.
Yeah, that wouldn't have ended well. But after all the the blood and the sweat and tears we shed, I was just kind of expecting that with my state of mind at the time. And I still look back and wonder how the hell it happened. So, yeah.
And the one thing I do want to ask about quickly, and I do know you guys can definitely skip this question if you want to, but we talked about all the great accolades, but for a while there, you guys took a little bit of a hiatus and went your separate ways. I have to ask, what made you guys decide to go your separate ways in the mid 2000s? And of course, what ultimately led to this phenomenal reunion?
Speaking for myself, I was just burned out. I was burned out from the road. I think we came home from a tour with like $300 in my pocket, and I just needed a break. That was really all it was. And to be honest, I really wasn't in love with the music I was making at the time. I felt lost. I felt like there was all this pressure on me to write a hit song. What's a hit song? I don't even know what that is. And I felt like I kind of got pulled away from my true artistic North Star, my true north as an artist. So for me, just speaking for me, it was time for me to just step away and just figure out who I really was outside of the band.
I guess I'll add to that. I mean, I feel like around the time that the band kind of imploded, we had been grinding for upwards of a decade at that point. And, obviously we had a few victories, but the common theme was struggle. It wasn't easy. We weren't getting big paychecks. We were trying to be, self-sustaining adults at that point, like we're all like in our early 20s or something like that, and manage a band at the same time. And the band was sort of like, it was a passion, but it was a thankless pursuit. And I think after a while, just like all that pressure and just like, the feeling of constantly trying to roll a boulder uphill, at some point we just all burned out and the whole thing crumbled. It's like we pushed and we pushed and we pushed until we just burned out. And everything Chris is saying is absolutely legitimate. Like, we had signed our third record deal with Surf Dog Records, and that was really much more of an experience where like they were pushing Chris to try to write a hit song or write a song that was going to get on the radio. And we were doing a lot of touring, but we weren't getting paid a whole lot for the shows. There wasn't a lot of tour support. I mean, legitimately, we were going out with Pepper and Slightly Stupid, and our per diem, right? Like a record label will give you per diems to like eat and do whatever for each day that you're on the road. They were $5 a day per band member.
Jesus.
Yeah, we got
that's greasy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of those little round Subway sandwiches, like that's
yeah.
Yeah.
To Mike's point, like, speaking for myself, I knew nothing about the record business. I knew nothing about publishing or any of that stuff. And we signed an absolutely horrible deal with Surf Dog Records. It was almost a predatory deal, if I'm being fair, and I think that played into my decision to step away. I recorded the record. I thought it was a good record, but I don't think it was my best effort, songwriting wise. And it's during a really traumatic time in my life. I went through a really horrible breakup. And there was some stuff that the label did that I wasn't really cool with. Like sometimes they would like suggest lyric changes. And I think we recorded the record and they waited on it like a year. And I was like living in a garage, and I'm like, how am I supposed to tour if we don't even have a record out? You know what I mean? We got no tour support and no rights to our music, and so it was a really, really tough learning lesson. And I got super jaded on the music business, and I just wanted to walk away. And it was healthy. And I think I got to kind of in time, like, kind of refine myself and refine my true north and why I love punk rock music and songwriting.
Life is so unexpected sometimes, and I think that that time that we spent between the Red and the Black and the new record Age of Validation, we really had an opportunity to just sort of go back out into the world and just kind of find ourselves. It's like when the band imploded, like things weren't great for a while. There were tensions. We weren't all best friends for a little bit, and like being able to come back and reconnect and re-solidify that foundation and just realize, hey, before everything else, we're friends, we're family, we love each other, and we're going to support each other. I think it saved the band, and then in the interim, we started playing reunion shows like every 3 years or so. And, I think it just sort of like kept the embers burning. The shows were always great. It was usually like us and Pivot. I don't know if you're familiar with Pivot from San Diego, but yeah. And then like whatever other local bands we could find. And the shows did really well every time we had, a reunion show. And we did that for, geez, like how long, guys? Like 15 years or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then to kind of bridge the gap, like, I don't know what it was with me, but like I always felt like Agent 51 was unfinished business. I always believed in the band. I always thought that we were capable of much more than we achieved and that we released. Like I would go back and I'd listen to the catalog and I'd certainly be proud of the stuff that we put out, but I knew that we had more in the tank. So, over the years, even like when I was living on the East Coast, I would just like get in touch with Chris and have him send me demos. And I'd, just make a point of like going into the studio, getting him some drum tracks and sending him back to him. Like, even if nothing ever came of the songs, I just continued sort of like being interested in the band and pushing and testing the waters. And, after, I don't know. I guess this is where Chris picks up, because after enough time, Chris started writing punk tunes again.
Yeah, I moved to Nashville for a couple of years and explored some of my country roots. And you can hear some of those in Agent 51's music, but when I moved back from Nashville, I really missed listening to those old punk records like Rancid, Let's Go, the old Minor Threat stuff that was just made at the time without any thought of commercial success. Even the old Green Day stuff too. And I thought, God, I'd love to just revisit that time in my life again. And Mike showed up and he's like, hey man, let's just release a single. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And we got Greg on board again. And then it's like, well, let's do another one. Let's do an EP. And then we had a band meeting. It's like, well, we've gone this far. Let's just do a whole album and enter this new record.
And this new record that dropped June 6th of this year, 2025, so literally just last month, I gotta say, it's a absolutely stellar 15-track studio album, Age of Validation. I know you just talked about it a little bit more, but going back into it, because I do know that you mentioned as well that you were sending, drum beats to him and whatnot, trying to get him back into trying to really keep the spark of Agent 51 alive. But with that being said, anything that you actually sent Chris throughout the years, did it actually end up on this record, or was that just something that, kind of just got lost in the shuffle throughout the years?
You mean like any old songs that any old songs end up on this record? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like any old songs. I do know like you guys were kind of like sending stuff back and forth throughout the years as you just spoke about. So did anything of those actually end up on this record, or was it all fresh stuff?
I think it's pretty much all fresh stuff. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, and that's that's pretty funny in and of itself. Like we messed around with quite a few demos, old and new. I think one of the first things we did was a re-recording of the very first Agent 51 song ever called Running Out of Luck. We did like a modern version of it. And then Chris and I did a song called Texas Venom, which was sort of like in between punk rock and country. We messed around with a bunch of tracks. And when it came time to do Age of Validation, you know, I sort of had this vision in my head, and I was like, oh, we can use these tracks, and there's this old stuff that I really like. And, you know, much to Chris's credit, I think it worked out the best for the band. He just wanted to write all new stuff. And the more he produced, the more it just worked, the more it just clicked. I'm trying to think of like, what was some of the first stuff that you wrote, Chris, off of Age of Validation?
I think it was just the early singles like Let Me Go and Going for the Vault, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only rule I had as far as writing is like, okay, every song's got to be real. It's got to be from the heart. It's got to be out of love. And to answer your question about old stuff, there's a song on the record called Light It Up, which has an old open fast riff that never got used in a song. So it's almost like we're going back to 1993. And I heard it on an old demo tape. I'm like, dude, we got to use that in a song. And then the rest of the song just wrote itself. And by the time we had, you know, about 10 songs, you know, I had enough momentum to keep on the wave, and thankfully enough technical know-how by this point to be able to send the songs as demos on my home recording equipment to the guys, and they could say, hey, we like this, we don't like this, change this, use this. And then as a collaborative effort, we kind of just co-produced the record.
And the song "The Safe Choice" as well, we actually have that in rotation here at the radio station. And I have the numbers up right here. This week alone, it has been spun 29 times. So we're keeping Agent 51
Awesome.
in like massive rotation. So,
Awesome,
you know,
man.
hopefully the listeners like what they hear, because I mean, they're going to listen to it either way.
Well, thank you. Mike influenced that song a lot. He wrote a song called Revolution. I was like, dude, that song's great. Let's record it on the new record. And it's got this really banging like chorus. But he's like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't know. I was like, well, how can I write a song like that without directly ripping it off? So we got cowbell on the chorus, and we got like a cool beat, and every word is from the heart.
And you guys also have some collaborations on this record as well. Nothing is on Autopilot also has Rob Brewer, and then we've got X-Ray Vision also is featuring Ace Von Johnson as well. What was it like just collaborating with these artists actually on your guys' newest project?
Well, Ace is an old roadie of ours. He goes back to the early days when we were in a broke down van all the time. And he had a punk band called PBR Street Gang, which was on our little self-imprint label, Suburban Hooligans. And he was just roadie extraordinaire. And he ended up moving to LA and working for all these big time bands like Faster Pussycat and LA Guns. And I think he even played on a Michael Jackson record, like not tribute record, but some late singles that were supposed to come out. And he just kind of ended up making his own name in, the biz. And so part of the kind of return to form was having him back in the mix and kind of just paying homage to all the times he helped us out.
And also, speaking of collaborations and whatnot as well, this one isn't really a collaboration, but this is also a really huge shout out. The legendary skateboarder, the greatest of all time, in my opinion. And those are fighting words, I will definitely say, the GOAT. The Birdman Tony Hawk also took to Instagram, where he actually gave Age of Validation a shout out and put you guys on a phenomenal pedestal when it came to this record. What was it like just being able to log into your guys' Instagram and see the Birdman actually just, give this album such an amazing praise?
It was cool. It was like all this music came from skate videos. And so it was really validating to kind of finally, after all these years, like get on the map with these guys and bring those worlds all together. It's like a thank you, just like thanks for inspiring that. We had no Spotify. It was all skate videos. Greg, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, just hearing the name Agent 51 kind of come out of Tony Hawk's mouth is a pretty sweet moment. And then on top of that, like we our album release show, we played with Urethane for the second time. We had played with them last year as well, and Steve Caballero plays in that band, and like that guy, like Steve Caballero was my ultimate skate hero back when I was a kid. So like it's been really cool, and like Willie Santos has like commented on some of our Instagram stuff, and it's just really cool like seeing all these skaters that we used to really look up to, like you know, just acknowledging our music. It's been awesome.
Totally.
Well, hopefully the next Tony Hawk game or next Tony Hawk remake, they actually do what is right with the not just the skate community but the punk rock community, and implement some Agent 51 in their games. Because I will say the fact that they're, and I'm not just saying this because I'm speaking with the band themselves, I have to say the fact that Agent 51 has not been in any of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skaters or the Undergrounds and so on is absolute blasphemy. You got to get some Agent 51 in those games, because I will say this, when I was younger, I used to actually have, you know, your guys' album, and I used to actually take the volume of the game, put it all the way down, just so you could hear the shredding and the rails, and play Agent 51, because I was like, that's the stuff I used to skate to.
Sweet.
Thank you, man. We're working on it as we speak. We got an angle we're working right now after all these years. So cross your fingers for us, man. We need to get in there.
Yeah, that would be a dream for me. Like, that would be so cool to hear one of my songs on that video game. And believe it or not, we have a little bit of history with Tony. Like, right before the band kind of imploded back in the Red and the Black days, we played his birthday party, right, or something like that in LA, Chris.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was like one of our last performances.
It was one of the worst shows we've ever played, because I broke a string and didn't have a backup, and Eric broke a string and didn't have a backup. And after 3 songs and it sounding like absolute garbage, we just decided to pull the plug. And I don't know if Tony Hawk heard us. I'm hoping he didn't. I'm hoping he was busy doing something else, but we were not prepared for that show. And I hope there's no recording of it somewhere. We played with Reeve Oliver and another band. And yeah, wow.
If Tony Hawk heard it that day, either he doesn't remember today, that's why he did the video, yeah, or he was just like, you know what, things happen, guitar strings break, and still gave the shout out. But I'm pretty sure if Tony didn't like what happened or he was upset about it, I don't think he would have gave the album a shout out. But I mean, it's Tony Hawk. He's one of the nicest guys. I've heard nothing but great things about Tony Hawk. So I don't think I've actually heard one negative thing about somebody meeting Tony. So I mean,
he's awesome. He's awesome. And shout out to Rick Savage, our manager, for hooking all that up. I mean, he's been absolutely instrumental in getting this record to the people, you know, and we go way back with Rick to like the early days. So it's an even like added bonus to have someone that we love and care about as a friend, like working with our band to help us. It's like this whole thing is just so DIY. It's like makes my eyes water.
And definitely thank you to Rick as well. I know he is definitely watching this interview, so I know I said it via email, but again, thank you, Rick, for actually making this interview possible. I definitely appreciate it. You do a lot of stuff. I can only imagine what you do for these guys, but just coordinating this, you've been a pleasure to deal with. I've dealt with a lot of managements throughout my years in radio, and some are like Rick, where it's absolutely easy to deal with, a pleasure. Then there's some where you're like, that's why I'm 31 and bald. Okay, that's all I got to say.
Well, he is the man. I mean, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I mean, he's essentially a fifth band member at this point. Like, he's in on every band meeting. He's in our band group chat. Like, you know, he's an equal participant in coming up with every idea that we're trying to take this thing to the next level, kind of thing.
And speaking of taking things to the next level, I do know next month, August 9th, you guys will be performing at the Nile Theater all the way out there in Arizona. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about this up-and-coming show. What can the Agent 51 fans expect from this up-and-coming performance?
Well, when we go on the road, like our our mission is to convert, right? And here in San Diego, we'll put on a kick-ass show, but when we're on the road, I think we put out like a lot of that extra mojo, if that's the right word. And it's with Unwritten Law. There's a lot of people from San Diego who moved out to Phoenix, so we'll probably be seeing some familiar faces. So it's never a dull moment when you're on the road with UL. So we're excited. I'm just happy to be playing these. So we're going to be playing a lot of new stuff. When we're on the road, it's probably all new to the crowd anyway. And I'm just thankful to be doing this and to play songs that like we really love live. I think that shows. So that's my take on it.
It's gonna be a really, really fun show. Jason Cruz from Strung Out is opening with his band Howl, and Pulley is playing and Unwritten Law is playing. So it's like, you know, we've done a bunch of shows with UL like regionally in a few different places in the last year and a half, 2 years. But I feel like this is the first time we've really been like in the thick of like a real punk rock show since we were, active in the early 2000s. So this is going to be a real chance to like make some new fans, meet some new people in the biz. I'm excited. We're actually playing with Jason Cruz and Hal the night before too in Crestline, California. So yeah, it's just exciting, man. You know, we're going to go out there. We're going to, put on the best performance we can with the time that we're given, and then run to the merch booth and talk to people, make some friends, and hopefully, as Chris said, convert some people, make some fans.
And before we actually part ways here this evening, guys, I have to ask, because obviously this brand new album is absolutely tearing up the airwaves, not only here on 99.9 FM, but so many other places as well. It's tearing up the Spotify charts. And of course, the show that we just spoke about. Aside from all that, what else is next for Agent 51? Is there anything we happen to miss during tonight's interview that you guys still want to touch on, talk about, or promote? We still got you here live, not only on YouTube, but of course the radio airwaves as well.
Yeah, Mike brought in the producer for this record, Eric Dalton, who just made it sound huge. And Greg designed the album cover. I had this concept, which I was kind of stuck on, but it wasn't working. And then Greg, at the midnight hour, came up with this awesome concept. So this is a true collaborative effort as a band. And we have way more songs that are on the record, and we have, I think, another EP in the works, which it's kind of a social D kind of country punk thing. And we have a bunch of cover songs coming out, one by The Jam, In the City, a Beastie Boys cover. And we're trying to get one of these new songs from the EP into the Young Guns Young Guns 3 movie. So cross your fingers for us.
And when it comes to the Beastie Boys, I know we can't get all the answers here tonight on the station, but I'm a huge Beastie Boys fan, so I'm just going to ask this. What cover do you guys plan on doing, or is that something you just want to keep for a surprise for the record?
Greg, you want to take this?
Yeah, we can say it because I guess it's hidden on Bandcamp where only our backers can listen to it. But we did the song "Mullet Head" from Beastie Boys. It was we had an Indiegogo campaign to fund the record in the first place, and one of the tiers was people could request a cover song. So our backer JD he ended up requesting that song, which was as a bassist was a huge challenge to do that bass track. Like I have an even more newfound respect for MCA for like laying that down. It was like a very difficult track, but it turned out really cool. It's really garagey and fun.
I'm glad to hear it was Mullet Head, though. I mean, so many bands do Sabotage, which, don't get me wrong, I love the song Sabotage, but so many bands do that cover where you're like, when you said Mullet Head, I was like, nice. I'm like, a great band doing a great Beastie Boys song. It just works out. If it was Sabotage, I would have been like, all right, I'll still mess with it. I'll still listen to it.
Yeah, we actually did a B-Boys cover back in the late 90s, Fight for Your Right, which was out on a compilation. So we're gonna bring that one back. I'd like to do Time for Living. Maybe if we don't even record it, I'd like to play that live. I think that would go off well live.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows what'll happen. We have so many different things that we're working on. We kind of toyed with the idea of doing like maybe like a Beastie Boys 7-inch or EP or something. We've got the tentatively titled Western Skies EP, which is really, for the most part, done already. Like all the music is written, and I think all the drums are tracked. Most of the guitars and vocals are tracked as well. I think that you guys can expect probably more video content being released for the tracks on Age of Validation. And we also re-recorded Red Alert, the song. So you might hear a 2025 or 2026 version of our definitive track, Red Alert.
And before we part ways here tonight, obviously I know how to follow Agent 51 across all social media platforms, but for the listeners that might not be that very diverse with social media, how do we go about following the entire band? That way we can stay updated, not only on up-and-coming shows, but also all this brand new music that is on the horizon. How do we go about following you guys across all social media?
I would say the easiest one to plug would be agent51.net. That's like our website. Still got a website these days. And it's got links to everything. It's got links to the Bandcamp, the Instagram. The Instagram probably gets the most steady updates and whatnot. But yeah, you can find all the links on agent51.net.
And we're working on tour dates for October, November. Would love to come to Canada. Absolutely. Get us up there. We'll play a barn.
You hear that, Canadian promoters. I will admit, I dabbled into promoting before, and I realized that I will just stick to being a radio personality. It is definitely very difficult. They all went very successful, but the headache, you know what I mean? I don't have very much hair left to lose, so I'd rather just keep it being a radio personality. But if any Canadian promoters are listening, you know what to do. Make sure you hit up Agent 51. The booking email is right there on the website, so hit them up and bring Agent 51 to Canada.
Yeah, we're looking for festivals to play, all kinds of stuff. There's so many opportunities these days to get out there, and we're ready to do it. We got a record and we're ready to promote it.
Yeah, man. Poutine, French Canadian girls, like, bring it on.
Oh, trust me, I know all about that, and you cannot go wrong with either of those. But I gotta say, Chris, Mikey, Greg, thank you so much for a bit of your time here this evening. It was such an honor speaking with you guys. I gotta say, this was a bucket list interview for me. So, Rick, again, thank you for making this one possible. And hopefully when all this music gets released, we can get you guys back on and do this all over again, except with all different questions. But for now, guys, thank you, Chris, Mikey, and Greg, again for your time. We definitely shall talk again here soon, and looking forward to hearing the new music when it does get released.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having us on. Anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
You're most certainly welcome, guys. Have yourself a phenomenal night and a kick-ass week as well.
You too, buddy. Talk
All
soon.
right, have a good one.